Fifth discourse about time. Time. Let's look at one thing really clearly and empathically. No matter what you're doing in regard to this awakening, it involves time because you invented it. Perception is time, the distance between events. Now here's the problem. Very simply, Jesus says that you invented time, but you do strange things with it. I'll start out right at the top of this. If space is the distance between events and observed events within the nomenclature of the imaging of the perceptual mind, we must observe texture. That would be a good word, in the relationship of our ideas in order to expand our perceptual association to the congruity of image reality. The teachings of a meditative notation are to bring you in the now. Is there anyone here that doesn't understand, whose perceptual mind will not see that now is the only time there is? That really isn't hard to do. When you project thoughts from your mind into the future, you are still making an admission that you are here and that you are now. You may cover that with the notations of linear time, or as Jesus would say in the Course, sequential time, the distance between your associate thoughts in regard to the construction of your mind within that framework. The question would never be whether you do this or not, because existence obviously is based on associative thought. You project form from you, which is nothing but thought. Thought of a different time, a tree, a house, a bird, a human being, a thought of a different time. And then you hold a distance between your past and future thoughts. Well, this is what perceptual thought is. There isn't going to be any real disagreement with this. The immediate problem that occurs is once you have the form, and there's no question that you have the form, and you can't get away from having the form. You are faced with the dilemma of the texture or the quality of associative thoughts between the image association of the consciousness who have actually established themselves independently of each other, and of how they attempt to bring together the creative notations of the reality of the now. Since this obviously involves perceptual thought, and I'm perceptually thinking about it, it would be increasingly obvious that the only manner in which you would change the texture of thinking would be by a transformation of your mind. You're not going to do it any other way. It doesn't make any difference how many thoughts you would be together. Jesus has a couple of sentences in the Course that says, levels do not communicate. He has made an allowance for levels of consciousness. So what? The only level of consciousness there really could ever be is the one that you are at in this moment. You literally invent through the manufacturing, through the association of ideas containing within you time. There isn't any question that you do. Isn't that amazing? You can see very plainly that you can do that. Time is only in your mind, individually, in associate thoughts. What I'm teaching is that I can take that image and bring it together in a higher degree of texture association, a wider range of space within the whole framework of space-time thought. Yes, I'm telling you that your mind is capable of doing this. How would it not be? It does it all the time. But it only does it for the moment that it brings the sequentiality of its associations of ideas into the single framework. In the Course, Jesus will say, if you keep a distance between your past and your future in continual sequential thoughts, you're really nothing. Obviously, you can see very plainly if you are just thought, and that thought is gone, you just keep replacing it with another thought. and you sequence it within a framework of your associate memories with yourself. This is the I Ching. This is what you call the Akashic Records, your genetic association with probability. Since you are sitting somewhere within the whole framework of space-time, what a strange thing to do. You individually take these ideas in your mind, construct a reality literally in association with the form, and give it meaning. My whole teaching from a new range of consciousness, this is Master Jesus again, is that I must tell you that it has no meaning, not because it does not have meaning to you. In fact, it establishes your meaning, but because it is not real. Do you see? It simply is gone. It's gone away. No matter how many times you would bring that up within the framework of your previous association, if you remember it, it is gone. You simply live within that framework of association. I am telling you that you can change your past by changing your mind. If you change your past by remembering, you will change the future. This has to be done within your mind, doesn't it? Everybody got this? You don't have to use this in a religious sense. I would love to take the religious vernacular out of what I teach. You will not get this from the idea of mind association without involving time. The ludicrousness, then, of a separate mind within a framework of what appears to be longevity constructing its own death will be funny to you. That would include the Earth. That includes 1,000,000 years. Listen, if we're going to change the fabric of time, actually what we're doing is changing the distance between the beginning and the end of it. We are simply taking all of the thoughts that were in association with all of time and pinching them together. In order to pinch them together in perceptual mind, you have to change the essence or the quality of your thinking. Have you got that? All I teach is to do that. There will be a point in your mind where, through the accumulation of quantity, which is nothing but full purpose, if you really get purposefully, this is the teaching, to bring about this transformation, the quantity of time is accumulated to the point where the texture or the quality of time actually shifts. Primitive man was much aware of this, just incidentally. Primitive man would set up a Sabbath. He was absolutely aware that one day of the week the quality of time was different. Why? Because on that day he would literally do nothing human. These are the teachings that have come down to the blue laws and all the other things that you don't adhere to. He knew that he was functioning within a framework of time, and that he also knew that on the seventh day God rested. You guys are hearing this a little bit. There would actually be a difference in the quality of time. The old Quakers who would get together for 7 hours in church were aware of this. This has now been lost. We have become more mechanized. But the idea that you could come together in a congruity of associate thought for 7-hour period in worship was literally bringing together space and time. It is exactly the same as the year of the Jubilee, when the Jewish calendar would say, every 100 years we're going to take all the thoughts that we have had, all the properties we've got, all of the so-called farms, all of the grain. We're all going to throw it all back in the hopper, and we're going to start all over. Well, this is exactly the same idea as going to church once a week. What I'm directing you to is that if the texture or quality of reality, literally your individual association with yourself, can be changed, wouldn't it be beneficent to you to change it rather than remain in the conflictual association of sequential time? Of course. This is very difficult to press on a consciousness that is holding on to its identity in its limited association. How can it express itself? Really, creation is only self-expression. It is so obvious that if you limit within your own genetic framework the definition that you have given to form, you can't create. If Beethoven wrote his first symphony when he was 6 years old, he obviously did not construct limited associate form to it. No matter how tempted you are to believe he snuck into his uncle's manuscripts and somehow put the notes together, that is not the case. He changed the texture of the association of perceptual thought. That is what creation is, of course. That is what masterpiece is. That is what genius is. That is what mind expanded is. That is what you are doing. Hey, we're into time here. Have you got any more time for this? No, your time is up. Once these thoughts begin to come to you, you can be walking along the street, and this is A Course in Miracles workbook. See what you are supposed to do, guys out there who are supposedly doing this. You literally stop your sequential thinking. You change the quality of time at that moment. Do you know what else will happen as you continue to do it? The perceptions you have outside yourself will change and you will work miracles. Do you hear that? You think it is contained within your own mind, dummies. It's not. The world is your creation. Come on. If time can be changed, space can be changed. The whole teaching would be there's no such thing as space except limited sequential time. When you change your mind, you literally change the events going on around you. Holy mackerel. It is not the observation of the limited bringing together of a miracle. That is what a miracle is. The miracle is changing of the total event in association with itself, with the totalness of it. Got it? What time do you have? 6:30. I looked at these new little digital computer times. They have even taken space out of the clock. You see a clock that has hands, has space in it. It is like a sundial, it's like a horoscope. They have reduced that into an image of numbers that appear on a little thing. They just keep squeezing it down. Don't let them do it to you, brother. Back to sundials. We have a lot of excitement about time, don't we? Where does God fit into that? What's God got to do with it? God is nothing but total time. You are the one who is constructing something divine or separate or evil. What could be evil except sequential time, which is possibility? The notation of possibility is fearful because it is an indication that something that can happen to you. Come on, guys. See how easy this gets? It's not hard to do this. Don't compare and it will change. Don't compare at all and it will change completely. It is a real fundamental teaching. Is that the same as, do you want to back it off to forgiveness? Sure. You're nothing but a series of ideas of conflictual associations. It has nothing to do with good or bad. It has nothing to do, finally, with the thought forms that you have endowed with a moment's reality in order to hold on to your identity within the framework of space-time. Is this you, then, that's doing this? Yes. Why is that so hard? You have looked up at the sky at night and you saw a trillion stars. You go, oh wow, look at me. Here I am with 3,000 billion separate forms here, and this is me. Come on, look what your mind is doing here. Why not just accept that you have constructed the earth, the continual gathering then of those limited thoughts will give quality to them and will actually change the texture of your time. There's no other way of doing this. You are in time. Jesus says that time and remembering perception are the same thing. This is the Course. Just for a moment, it is the same thing. Time in itself does nothing. You give time all the meaning that it has, just as you give memory all the meaning that it has. It is given by you and your ideas. Now you can begin to see why, while this may be painful to you, we, in association with our own apparent reality, the conglomeration of the microcosmos, we are not equal in time. We force equality on ourselves in our perceptual associations. When creative mind really begins to think, it expands vertically outside of the framework of the perceptual mirage or image that is going on in perception. You call it genius. That is really what is happening to your mind here now. That's nice. Here is what you are faced with. If time is not sequential, and I'm directing you to change the associate ideas that you have in the quality, in the dimension of your time, each moment then must contain all of time, and of course it does. If you bring those moments together, this is really what the definition of a miracle would be. But nothing prevents you from bringing all of time together, totally, each moment, and transcending your own mind, or changing the whole relationship that you formerly had with yourself. This is called enlightenment. Is it bodily? How would it not be bodily? Is it earthly? How would it not be earthly? Is it heavenly? How would it not be heavenly? It is you. It is your mind. What is the difference between solid and liquid and gaseous? All you have to do is reach out with your thoughts and you can penetrate any form that you've established as a distance between you. You see how simple transcendentalism becomes then. Of course you can do it. We have a divine brother who is leaving now. He has to go. He is very much aware that he is stepping into what you would call a slower sequential time. There's going to be momentarily for him a little more distance between his thoughts because he's going to have to make allowances for thicker, I'm using these terms of interchangeably, or darker textures. There's not enough of what you would call light shining on them. They're not fast enough. When Jesus says that we're speeding up time, this is what he means, of course. We're changing the texture. This is a notation that should be made. You can detect a difference in texture of your thinking when you listen to a high emanation of energy response in association with itself. This is a definition of a master or whole mind teacher. If you do that with A Course in Miracles, you would see immediately that the thought forms and patterns that are brought together by Master Jesus in A Course in Miracles are not human thoughts. No matter how much the scribes are determined to pull these incredibly lovely light total concepts into some sort of framework of their limitation, they're not succeeding, and it becomes ludicrous. Somewhere along the line, somebody and the groups that are doing it now is going to have to look at it and say, hey, this is true. The reality we have at this moment can be transformed to a different framework of associate space-time. I'm not going to get into the psychology of resistance of that, because obviously the limiting factor of what is termed death, sequentiality, what you call aspects and degrees and intervals, and waxing and waning, is a part of perceptual mind. Very simply, perceptual mind then, within its framework of limitation, defends itself from wholeness or eternity. Of course, that is where the conflict is. That is what a human being constructs as his limited framework. The distance between his thoughts is conflictual, isn't it? Is that real? Hey, that's real. He's got thought forms out there that are literally attacking him of his previous and future associations. We're bringing a lot together here. If you can get it outside of your limited, incredibly limited association of religion and philosophy and pull it all together in the simple statement that you are speeding up time, bringing together the alpha and the omega, the cause and the effect, the idea of evolution, the idea of the moment of slowness to fastness, is the whole idea of your mind. What a glorious notation. If you could take a sentence that Jesus says that no matter how tempted you are to believe it, finally cause an effect on another part, that would step you out of time, wouldn't it? Automatically. The closer you bring it together, the more responsibility you take for thought. The closer you bring the effect together with you, and the closer you get to eternity. This is all we really present to you. Your dilemma and the dilemma of the earth is the admission of this. But come on, I'm sitting right here in your dream sequencing. The reason we call this a dream or an illusion or a hallucination is because it literally cannot be real. What you call the ego, don't say that it's not what you are, because it is what you are as long as you are associating thoughts in time. The ego cannot be real. It simply isn't. Never mind the idea. Well, it is real, and then it works to do something. That's nonsense. If you are looking at changing the quality of the thought form in time, you will see immediately that it is not real and never was real. No matter what you do, you are not going to make it so. But that is not going to prevent you from being real and associating in any manner in which you wish to associate. It's funny how the mind holds on to time and makes a prediction about its death. It says, I'm going to do it. It literally dies at that moment, but it can't see it. If time is really not separate, if there is really no distance between cause and effect, it holds on to the tension between the two and simply invents its own death. This is what I present to you. Death is an invention. How absurd. All you need to do is simply say, I am not going to die, and you won't die. All you need to do is, I believe you, teacher. Are you ready for that? You don't want to hear that. I'm telling you that you can't die. You cannot finally sequence time. You insist that you can because you are the sequencing of the events, aren't you? Do you attack me when I present this? Of course. You are attacking the notation of no death. But you can't die. You cannot succeed in obliviating yourself. Let's not be absurd. You can make up all the inventions you want about going somewhere later on, coming back here. You can do anything you want with it within your own framework. The only time you could ever wake up and see your wholeness is now. The notation that you are asleep can be very valuable to you. Everywhere you look, all you are seeing are your thought forms at some place within the fabric of the distance between the beginning and the end. Do you see that? Do you do that? Sure. And I'm telling you that you individually, and not only individually in your whole mind power, can transcend this. The forms that are around you literally have no meaning. This is a course in the transformation of your mind. Stop doing your limited genetic associations of falsity. This is a course at a nice new level for you. Jesus says that your relationships are killing you. What else would kill you? If you have constructed death, what kills you more readily than the forms you have established to retain your limited identity? Why is that so hard for you? The only way you can come to know that, obviously, is by a relinquishment. We're back into the teaching, or the non-defense of yourself in association with your determination to hold on to the limited state of consciousness. Does anybody out here not hear this? You hear it all right. You don't like it. All I really want to do is make an obvious, simple choice between time and dying, and life and living forever with love. Why should you have to lose something? Why do you defend your own demise? Can you hear me, you dummies? I don't mean you are dummies. What I mean is you are dummies. What I mean is your eyes are not constructed to see any vocabulary. that you have in response to this is designed to defend yourself. As Jesus said, you invented speech or Babel, the Tower of Babel, to keep from seeing the very obvious, that you are whole and beautiful. If I offend you, that's okay. I'm sitting in the middle of your dream, though. How are you going to get away from me? You can't. This is all over. Isn't that funny? Jesus in the Course says the most you can say about the past, that it is over and gone. If you understand that your future is your past, then the future will be gone. If that's gone, you can see immediately that all of this is gone. The sentence of Jesus, the old world was over a long time ago, perhaps will begin to mean something to you, you dummies in your own dream. You think I'm attacking you. I'm trying to shake you loose from your own perceptual poop. Excuse me. That's not a very scientific term, but everything that is constructed in form has no meaning. Jesus would say you put a frame around it, you gild it, and you give it credit. This is lovely stuff. And it just rots on you. It just goes away, it stinks finally, and you keep burying it and worshipping your death associations. Then you stand around the consciousness that you have killed with your own mind, and bemoan the fact that it is dead. Would you care to look at that? Funeral goers, this is in the Course too. You gather around the bier and bitterly complain about the time you have established for your own demise. Is the word insanity perhaps appropriate at this time? This is very early in the Course. How could you not observe the craziness and the nuttiness of the determination of a consciousness to intentionally inflict on himself sickness, pain, and death? Salvation, obviously, comes from my new certainty of mind that this is not real, so that I don't have to judge it in its limited associations with itself. Do you hear me? Come on, new minds. Is this a new teaching? Yes. Is the earth real? Don't be absurd. Look at the relationship of where you are to the universe for just a minute. Now be happy that your mind is in this expansion. Jesus says, be a happy learner, rather than trying to crunch down and listen to the calls of all your previous murderous intents. These are the images and thought forms that you have sent out to bring you back the message that what I am teaching you cannot be true. Don't tell me you can't learn this course, Jesus says. Don't tell me. You wrote it. But you wrote it in a different sequence of thoughts, and you have returned with me now for a moment to bring it into focus of your joint reality, the moment that we shared in true perception. We are at God's country place, just sitting here and talking about being out of time, which is where we really are. We have come just for a moment to remind you that you did awaken and are gone from here, and all the torture and pain and death that you are feeling has absolutely no reality. I know this is difficult for you, but the necessity is that you accept my certainty that love and goodness and wholeness are real and forever, and they have no association at all with your perceptual mind of sickness, pain, and death. It must be obvious to you why we teach this as forgiveness. Really quickly, you psychologists, the idea that you would hold a separate thought form out from you and deny that you have created it in your own mind is what conflict is. Come on. Does anybody want to look at this? Who really wants to hear this? It would be obviously necessary for you then to change your mind about the form that you have put out there. The way you do that is by including it in with your own mind. This is a course of inclusion, not subtraction. It appears to be a course in meditation and quieting your mind in order to still it down in its concept, but remember that mind is active all the time. There's a caprice creating going on in here. By stilling the sequence of time, the mind expands automatically. This is what we want you to do. The idea of practicing forgiveness will become real strange to you finally, because you will see immediately that you have constricted sin out there, and you will immediately forgive it and bring it into wholeness. This is what we want you to do with your mind. But the idea that you're going to practice that really doesn't make any sense. Why would it make sense? It will change if you let it. The real problem that you have is that possession of thought form is what holds you in existence. The idea that you must give in order to have is difficult for you. All you really are is an expression of your conglomerate associations, your genetic memories. If you hold yourself in a distance between your thoughts, you will be possessed by the thoughts and will only squeeze out your perceptions, that association within your own mind. The notation of giving them becomes imperative so that you can come to see that having and being are the same thing. They are not separate. You don't really have thoughts, you are the thoughts. This is what happens when whole mind comes whole. It begins to extend from itself its expanded identity. Finally, it becomes a single whole identity in the transformation of the mind. Nothing can be solved by conflict, obviously. Your idea is that conflict can be solved by balance or by taking your previous forms in a time framework. All you do is extend longevity. Eternity is not a long time, and you have done this for a very long time. The result of balance must be death, because it is the idea of duality, or that there are really separate thoughts. Now listen to me. Number 1. An idea never leaves its source. So every thought that you ever had as the source of it is contained within you. Number 2. There are no such things as separate thoughts. The only thoughts there will ever be are the thoughts that are emanating from your mind. Take hold of that, so you don't look out and pretend that you don't know something. Don't give construct to something and then deny that you know it, and let it instruct you from its own limitation. This is what a relationship on earth is. Neither one of us knows what we are. I'll deny you, you deny me, and we'll base our reality in time for just a moment on nothing, and then die and mourn the fact that we don't have the solution to this. How absurd! It is very hard to teach that not knowing is a denial. It is a decision. You literally make a decision not to know. Who are you kidding? I know you better than that. I know you all perfectly well. How would I not? If you want to fit us somewhere in time, we have to fit somewhere in time, because you are a combination of light refractions or rays harmonizing, in the sense of creating limitedly, in a particular sequencing framework of time. We then come together, but we are only thought forms. I must know you completely. Am I meeting you in the different phases of the fabric of time? Jesus says that it is impossible to meet a stranger. Not only that, but if you meet him, you must have met him in an earlier and a later framework. You like that. That's reincarnation. I'm telling you that you are carnated all the time. You never it. You only change it each moment. You like that. Somebody asked Jesus in the teacher's manual, is reincarnation valuable? Well, anything that let you know that life is continuous is valuable. And the scribes immediately take hold of it and practice their own death ritual, and then proclaim that the master says that reincarnation is okay. That's nonsense. I tell you that everything is okay until you change your mind about it, dreamer of the dream. This reality is only your dream. It is nothing more than that, and you can step out of here at this moment by changing your thought form associations. Moving mountains, like Master Jesus says, is the least you can do. Why would you bother do that? You are just reconfiguring the illusion within the limited framework. Can you do that? Wow, you're doing it every moment. I'm teaching you to die, now to live. Let go to live. Change the sequence and shorten the time. Can you hear me? Let those who can hear, hear. Do you hear this? Is that opening up in your mind now? Are you bringing together that perceptual dissociation, that distance in your own body brain? Are you undergoing a change to open up the Holy Spirit? Listen, here is the difficulty you have. This is why we need places around the world like God's Country Place. A place where you can come and have the serenity of the dissociation from the conflict of the world. Obviously, if I look at the clock now, I see that at this particular time, that immediately places me in association with getting up this morning, going through the day, and ending this day. The next thing you know, you're planning your own pension and for your vacations. The idea that you can stop doing that is obviously not looked on with favor in a world that bases its own reality of passing of time and your termination. Why? You will stop buying life insurance policies. Finally, you will stop sending your children to school in order to establish some sort of posterity, so that when you are dead, that they can go on living. Do you see why whole thought is attacked? Where do you seek solace for this attack, which is inevitably going to come in judgment of you in your previous associations? Hopefully, in this maturation of mind, there are other brothers, other teachers who are speeding up their time. This is what Jesus calls the circle of atonement, so that you can come together, so that there is value in coming together in exchange of the energy-mind associations with us. So here's what you do. You begin with the positive admission that there is no way out of the dilemma of sequential time except by the relinquishment of the limited self. This is all fundamental initiation teaching. You make the admission to the necessity for transformation of your mind on an individual basis. Then let everything that you do, each moment within this apparent sequencing, be directed to this certain assertion. As Jesus would say in the Course, you can shorten time indefinitely. You are literally bring it to a close. Why? While you may not know that you have invented perception, you in fact have the admission that you have, since obviously you have the knowledge within your framework for a future reference use. Why not use your future reference now and come whole in the sharing of your reality? If there is in fact an evolution of mind and you have made that statement, why not make it a mutation and bring about the end, to the glory and the realization that you never left heaven, and that you are really here in glory now with the whole brotherhood. Is that individual? Sure. But we do understand, we know the dilemma of the associate phenomena of the miracle which you are denying. You are seeing miracles now in this new framework of you happening all around you, and you are perforce made to deny them, and you are forced back into the limited perception of your previous associations. Don't do it anymore. The heck with it. Now you have a legitimate choice whether to proceed along the human route to death or to step back, as Jesus would say, and say, no, there's a different way of looking at this, and I'm going to find it. Then, more and more, you make that commitment. And each time you do, you come closer to where time ended. Because remember, time ended when it began. You are completing a journey that never really occurred. You are simply awakening. I'm awake. I'm in your dream. You cannot possibly fit me into the sequencing. If you would accept that, it would be of great benefit to you. No matter what I do, you can deny me, you can attack me, you can admit me, you can do anything you want. But I will not fit into your category because I proclaim to you there's no such thing as this category. It is like I'm going along and literally shaking you awake. Come on. I'm doing it with love and understanding. You are the one that has constructed these things you see, the sickness and the pain. Why not just let it go? What are you afraid of? Love can only be letting go of fear. Is that the same as letting go of self? Hey, self is fear. Change that line to love is letting go of self. Wow, simply give up, relinquish your defense mechanisms, and remember the wholeness and love of true universal consciousness. Remember, I just told you, I know you. We all know each other perfectly well. We are reminiscing about this and have come back for a moment in this fabric of dream to share the atonement, to repair the rent of eternity that caused the momentary unreal schism for which you feel the guilt and responsibility that I share with you for just a moment. This is the atonement. It is the covenant or the agreement that we shared, the acknowledgement of the horrendous error that never happened. Wake up and come on home. We will see you. We will see you garbed in light. Let these changes happen to you. Let the miracle occur. Come on. Do you know we should see you soon in person for just a moment, and that our job in the atonement is to come into your minds? I can come into your mind right now. If there aren't any separate thoughts, a lovely idea. There's no real distance between us in time or space. That is impossible. I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. That is what I do. Why is that so hard for you? You were afraid of that. Boy, is that intimate. Don't get too close to me, like Jesus said. You let me walk alongside of you, but you are not going to really integrate me. Why? You would become me. You simply would immediately spring into your own Christhood. That is what we teach. That is really the declaration I'm making to you now. This has been a talk on time, but we can't talk about time without talking about eternity, because they are opposites. As long as there's an idea of opposites in your mind, remember, though, that they don't communicate at all. Associate thoughts do not communicate with reality, because reality is a single thought at the creation of a whole mind. We will call it God for a moment. He made you perfectly within the totalness. It has nothing to do with the sequential notation that you have about yourself. Wake up, dear brother, wake up. We love you. We will see you soon. Reach up and come to your light for just a moment. This is your assignment. Be happy. You are free. Be free. Wow, that's it. Time is not sequential. That is, time being consciousness of association of thought, or space really, is not sequential. Finally, if there is only a single time, this moment, that would be as close as the idea of time could get to no time. These are abstractions, but I'll give you the thoughts anyway. Any reasonable mind can see that eternity, that is no time, is the opposite of time. Now, you can then do all sorts of imaginations with your mind in relationship, ideas of association between beginnings and ends, and you call that life. And indeed, it is life, but it is in conflict finally with, or in a dissociation from, eternity, or the single certainty of truth and wholeness. You can get into Socratic discussions about time and no time, and the number one, and the impossibility of two, and the certainty of subjective reality. And that's fun, and a lot of you guys like to hear that. We will do that. Let's get into quantum, and we will make statements that everything contains the whole, or everything is going on at one time. Your mind contains all of the aspects and degrees of nonlinear time in the congruity of reality, and your mind is all a part of it. These are true statements. You are sitting and you are doing A Course in Miracles, for example. Jesus teaches no time, and you pluck out the Course in Miracles statements like, you can get this over a period of time, or statements like, this can take a very long time to do. That's in the teacher's manual because we have to give it to you. We cannot take from you the mechanism of decision within a perceptual framework. And that is, dear brother, what a linear or progressive time is. Now let's get to what you don't want to talk about, great philosophers. What you don't want to do is make application of your pseudo philosophies into the psychology of forgiveness of your past frames of reference. What does Jesus say? Time is a sleight of hand. The free willists do not like the idea that everything has been determined. We will give them total freedom within the determinism framework of the inevitability that all time is past, but we will not allow them to have the will to annihilate, because the will to annihilate or to obliviate is impossible. You are nothing but a conglomeration of grievances. You have brought with you into this framework an idea of lack or need or defense or attack. You might just as well stop, philosophers, with what you are doing right now and take a look at the associations that you have brought with you in this particular karma frame of reference, the images that you have projected from yourself. You must, if you are going to do this course in initiation, if you are going to come to me, if you are going to make declarations of your need for transformation, you are going to have to go to the fundamental issues of refusal of you to accept the inevitable statement that you are inflicting pain on yourself. Until you get that, you don't have anything. This is what Master Jesus says. This is really all the Course teaches. I know you don't want to hear that, but we might as well start with this premise. There's no sense in telling me that you are practicing forgiveness. That's absurd. Practicing forgiveness is an attack on reality. Everybody smiles and says, yeah, well, I'm certainly working on giving up my grievances. What absurdity. You're nothing but a grievance. Somewhere within your framework, you really believe in this dream that you have constructed and placed these images outside of you in this little, wherever you think you are, dismal alcove, Jesus calls it. You are letting these dream thoughts that you send out and come back and attack you. If that's not hallucinating, what is it? But that being said, until you are willing to address it in relationship with yourself, there's no sense in coming to me with all the philosophies. There's a lovely so-called transpersonal psychologist named Ken Wilber. Maybe you know him. He wrote some lovely notations of the merger and the advancing of consciousness in the evolutionary process of the certainty of truth. He presents it beautifully until he reaches a point of his own psychology, and then he makes inane statements like, I wish my guru would go up onto a mountaintop so I wouldn't have to judge him, so that I could put him separate from my own reality. He makes no real attempt to judge himself in a relationship with the illusion. My direction to you is this. You have all the power in your mind. The only time the transformation can occur is now. If you will give up your past previous associations of yourself in the sequential time, you will undergo a change in the quality of the time. This is literally what forgiveness is. There are elements contained in this teaching that smack of detachment to the point of surrender. Obviously, you guys on this so-called serious spiritual path have the notion that you are going to understand God. You're very determined that within this framework of your grievance and limitation, you will bring the whole truth, your ideas about what God ought to be. But if we use the word surrender, you don't like it. I know. But let's all get together and pull together, and we can solve these problems. How do you solve the problem of death? Your mind has already constructed a problem of termination. This is the whole notation that you're sequencing time, isn't it? And I say, don't do that. How can we teach that then in the psychology? I'm going to tell you how. Are you ready? Here's what I teach. Die now. We have got them now, haven't we? Everyone who comes here for no reason but to put off the inevitable. How absurd. Is there another choice between fending off or protecting myself from disease, sickness and death and disharmony and jealousy and hatred and greed? Is there any other choice? Yes. There's a choice not to participate in it all. There's a choice to simply look at it and say, the heck with this, I can't do it. There's got to be another power. There has to be something else in my mind other than my human relationships and my perpetual falsity. There has to be. And of course there is. But you can't know that until you let go of your own concepts. Is this forgiveness? Yes, naturally. It's resist not evil. It's turn the other cheek. It's walk the extra mile. It's serve your brother. Why? You're only serving yourself. Why? You are only forgiving yourself. How easy, yet how difficult. You guys out there, you don't want to hear this, but I'm telling you, you have to hear it. How long before you hear it? You always heard it. When will that be? It was always. And then you say, I'm not going to listen to you anymore, and you shut the book. When you will finally make a decision, or when did you make the decision to take the initiatory step? When the pain got too intense, when you finally woke up one morning and you looked and you said, hey, what's going on here? My 14-year-old just got run over by a truck. I'm in a condition of fear and my pension has been lost. I worked for 50 years. There's no justice here. There's no one I can rent my rage on any longer. Maybe then you will take a deep breath and read what Master Jesus says in the Course. You are doing this to yourself. You are in conflict with reality. You are asleep. This isn't so. Does this take a certain temerity on your part? Do you have to test your spirit against the determination of the pseudo-consciousness to stay here and die? Of course. This is what you don't want to do. Remember, they are only your previous judgment in association with yourself. They have no reality. Somehow I moved from the beginning of this talk, which was a talk on time and space, into a talk on grievance. But remember, time is grievance. Time is the notation that you can work out a solution to a problem that is non-existent. If the problem does exist, there is no eternity, because you would have two things, time and eternity, and that is not possible. Only a split mind would think that it could be separate from the whole. How does it identify itself? By its previous memory association with the whole fabric of time. In reality, the closest you can get to eternity is this moment. This will be an indication then of the possibility of separation, the acknowledgement of what position or separation, and the return in time to the impossibility of it. This is the schism. How long did it take? Well, how long do you want it to have taken? 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, just a moment? Let's go to the premise. Your perceptual mind has invented time. In fact, perceptual mind is an invention of space and time. Beyond you, beyond this little association of memories that have no meaning in your sleeping mode, there's a whole bright, true, loving reality. If you look at what we are presenting to you now, you will be able to see that I'm contained within your framework of perception. If that is true, the admission that I'm instructing you from outside of time, the admission that in fact I have come at your direction to instruct you outside of time, would be very beneficial to you. Are you ready to do that? You don't like to do that. You attack me for presenting you with your power. I give you all power of mind, and you attack me in order to not have to assume responsibility for the projections of your hatred and greed which are outside of you. You say to me, well, I'm going to work that out in time. Dear brother, you will never work it out. There is no future. Your futures are always based on your previous frames of reference in association with sequential time. You literally are covering your now. You cover your eternity. Those of you who feel the glorious stirrings now of singularity that are coming into the mechanisms of decision that are contained in your perceptual body-brain will begin to really like what I'm saying. Why? Because the miracle is starting to occur to you, and the previous images or forms that you established in and identified outside of you and then brought together in the falsity of sequential time improve or become brighter in relationship with themselves, and you undergo the metamorphosis to new mind that transcends the nothingness of the association of the distance between cause and effect. Does anybody hear me? This is nothing but a metamorphosis, an awakening. I'm going to give it to you for a moment, the idea of evolution, with a statement that the cognition that I am aware that I'm aware, which is a conflict of the ego, is a necessary step in the evolution of the consciousness in its return from potential to reality. But what possible excuse could you afford me if you are in that statement of acknowledgement and have reached any sort of definitive conclusion that you are the cause through your perception of the pain of your brother and the pain of yourself and all the terrible things that are happening in your nightmare, that you simply would not step back and say, I'm not going to do this anymore? The strange idea that something can die, that you will go through a process of aging and death, and that sometime in the future you will be able to do this, is exactly what is holding you in your death process. What you are saying to me literally is, I would rather stay in time and become diseased, age, and die, than listen what you are telling me. The scribes, the consciousnesses that are practicing their perceptual observations of A Course in Miracles, are denying the fundamental principle of A Course in Miracles. They are fearful of the fundamental teaching of the Course that consciousness is singular and whole, and that they are that consciousness, and that the admission of the falsity of their associations, the bringing together of the evil and the good, is what the transformation is. Is their altar defiled? Sure. It is defiled by the guilt of their conceptual associations. My proclamation to you is that sin and sickness and death are not real, and your associations with love, truthfulness, and kindness within your sequential time framework is what death is. If you will look at the absurdity of sequential time, you can see very plainly that life, as you define it, as though life had to be defined, is based on the ultimate termination. That cannot be life. Life based on death. If qualification for life is not being dead, that seems reasonable to you, you might as well stop reading. I say to you unqualifyingly that consciousness is singular, that truth is whole, and that there is no death. There is no such thing as termination. How many are ready to hear the simple statement that there is no sickness and death, and that they are whole, and that they are the only living Son of God, as Jesus would say in the Course? That doesn't have to mean anything. All that has to mean is that you are living and that you are whole and singular mind and that there's no conflict going on outside of you. The notation of future conflict, the need to store, the need to hold on, the need to possess is only an indication of the limitation of your mind. That's all. We started out this wonderful talk on the perceptions of time, the fabric of time, and the quality of time, and we end up saying, why don't you forgive your brother? Why don't you try to experience the pain that you are causing to him? Then you will see that the insane statement you make to me, like, well, I know I'm the cause of this and I'm going to work this out, are nonsense. When you begin to feel your brother's pain, you will stop doing it, brother. And I assure you that if the process of knowing is giving, if the process of being is giving, when you give pain, you must be holding on to it. Come on. These are lovely statements of relinquishment, and I think it's time you did it. We are with you here. I'm with you here in this dream for just a moment as you instructed me, to the awakening, to the glory of your realization of remembering that this is not real. Come on home. We have a base in the Pleiades, and we will pick you up here. We closed off this section a long time ago. You like that story. It was a screw-up, but it has been taken care of. Is a screw-up the same as a mistake? Yes. Do you want to admit to the mistake? Why not? If the mistake has caused you all the problems, why don't you simply admit it and spring into heaven? Why hang on to them? The ship is leaving any minute. Are you at the rendezvous point? The covenant you have this deep in your cellular memories is the certainty that what I'm saying is true. Get excited about it, brother. This is your way out, and you can remember it. We love you. Let's look at this through the teachings of Master Jesus and the Course in Miracles for just a moment. We are proclaiming to you that time is not sequential and that every thought that has ever been in all memory is contained in you. If you want to call memory consciousness your genetic code, that's perfectly all right with me. If you can gather together all the notations of relationship, thought, and you want to call that an evolutionary process, you want to show me how this zygote evolves through the phases to a metamorphosis of a human being, I'll take all of that. Do that with me. What I want to show you is finally, the universe is only mind. And mind in perception must be the mechanism of decision. By bringing together the variant mechanisms that you have made application of to hold yourself in the limited framework of consciousness, you can indeed transform. This is early in the Course where Master Jesus is talking about guilt. Chapter 13, what he says is this: guilt has nothing to do at all with right or wrong or sick or sickness. Guilt is simply the organization of your own thought system. You're going to be responsible for the associate thoughts. There's a sentence in chapter 13 where the Master says that it may be strange, it may seem strange to you that you have no need to order your thoughts in any direction. In fact, if you do, you will hold yourself separate from the truth. Listen to this. Here is an admission that it is possible for perception for just a moment to be true. You transcendentalist out there, the moment of truth that you have come into a full perceptual truth, but what is involved? Finding the present. To perceive truly is to be aware of all reality through the awareness of your own. Isn't that something? But for this, no illusion can rise to meet your sight, for reality leaves no room for any error. This means that you perceive a brother, you see the things outside of you, you see your associations, only as you see him now. Are you ready to really look at this? I will show you what forgiveness really is in your mind. You see your brother only as you see him now. Why? His past has no reality in the present, so you cannot see it. This is literally the way I look at you. If you care to look at what a whole mind is, no matter what you would present me with a perceptual evaluation of yourself, and you need to associate with me, I assure you that it means absolutely nothing to me or to any whole mind. The idea that you're going to formulate yourself from our previous associations and present to me a program of relationship doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything to any advanced teacher. He is simply going to look right through you and say that what? You are the only living Son of God. His past has no reality in the present, and so you cannot see it now. This is if you have true perception. Your past reactions to him are also not there. And if it is to them that you react, you see but an image of him that you make and cherish instead of him. That has to do with whether you love him or hate him. You can cherish hate as much as love, and you do. You actually construct this image based on your previous reactions to him, and this is nonsense. And perceptual mind does it. It bases its reality on the past, doesn't it? In your questioning of illusions, ask yourself if it is really sane to perceive what was as now. If you remember the past as you look upon your brother, you will be unable to perceive the reality that is now. Later on in chapter 17, Jesus will say that when you look at him, you are literally seeing nothing. He is an image of your past associations or your future associations, which is a prognostication of devastation, since it is based on previous frame of reference. That's the apocalypse, right? You consider it natural, this is the condition of the human mind, to use your past experience as the reference point from which to judge the present. Yet this is unnatural because it is delusional. When you have learned to look on everyone with no reference at all to the past, either his or yours, as you perceive it, you will be able to learn from what you see now. For the past can cast no shadow to darken the present unless you are afraid of light. And this is exactly what you're afraid of. You're afraid of the true you. So you hold yourself in the bondage. You are possessed by your previous thought relationships. Oh my goodness. And only if you are, would you choose to bring darkness with you. And by holding it in your mind, see it as a dark cloud that shrouds your brothers and conceals their reality from your sight. This darkness is in you. The Christ as revealed to you now has no past, for he is changeless, and his changelessness lies your release. For if he is as he was created, there is no guilt in him. No cloud of guilt has risen to obscure him. And he stands revealed in everyone you meet because you see him through yourself. What a lovely sentence. You see him through yourself. To be born again is to let the past go and look without condemnation upon the present. The cloud that obscures God's Son to you is the past, and if you would have it past and gone, you must not see it now. If you see it now in your illusions, it has not gone from you, although it is not there. This is the whole basis of forgiveness. Here are sentences that we're going to read about time. Listen. Time, which is an invention, is completely abstract. It's condition of mind. Can release as well as imprison, depending on whose interpretation of it you use. Past, present, and future are not continuous unless you force continuity on them. You can perceive them as continuous and make them so for you, and you do. But do not be deceived, and then believe that this is how it is. For to believe reality is what you would have it be according to your use for it is delusional. You would destroy time's continuity. Now wait, we gave time continuity, and I'll come back to that. By breaking it into past, present, and future for your own purposes, you would anticipate the future on the basis of your past experience and plan accordingly. Yet by doing so, you are aligning past and future and not allowing the miracle of whole-mindedness, which could intervene between them, to free you to be born again. Notice that we use the word continuity. The direction then is to bring all your thoughts together in one statement of forgiveness. To what? Remembering the now. Remember the now, and to make yourself whole through that remembering. The miracle enables you to see your brother without his past, and so perceive him as born again. His errors are all past, and by perceiving him without them, you are releasing him. And since his past is yours, you are in his release. Do you hear that? His past is only yours. Why? He is only a memory that you have. For goodness sake, if you are holding a grievance against him with all of this so-called reincarnation, I would suggest that you release him and get him away from your modality of attack and defense. Judgment and condemnation are behind you, and unless you bring them with you, you will see that you are free of them. Look lovingly upon the present, for it holds the only things that are true forever. All healing lies within it because its continuity is real, no conflict. It extends to all aspects of the sonship at the same time and thus enables them to reach each other. There's no distance between your thoughts and the end of the universe. Isn't that lovely? Ready? The present is before time was and will be when time is no more. In it are all things that are eternal, and they are one. Their continuity is timeless and their communication is unbroken. For they are not separated by the past. Only the past can separate, and it is nowhere. Wow, isn't that lovely? A statement from where? Out of time. If you would like to stop for a moment and think about it, and look at what I just read to you, go ahead. The assertions of a whole mind, out of body, in the declaration of what you just read. That's an extraordinary thing. Why don't you begin with the concept that what you just read and what I'm presenting to you is real? At least seriously entertain the possibility that sickness and death and sequential time are not real. As you look out at the sky and see 100,000 trillion stars with 5,000 million billion so-called individual inhabitants, wouldn't it be time for you to at least tentatively accept responsibility for the earth? For goodness sake, why would that be such a big deal for you? You are running along the string of time. As you return from the potential back to the source, time becomes faster. I'm encouraging you to shorten time by igniting your memory relationship with the potential of your reality. Can you do that right now and step out of time? Dear brother, you are out of time in reality. The part of you that is performing this ritual of return has no reality to me at all. We stop by to do a little cultivating in this section of the galaxy. We are repairmen, for goodness sake. What is the Christ if he is not a repairman? Well, that's another talk. We are given particular assignments. We assume memory garbs, and we simply come into reconnect the dissociation, the break in the communication that occurred within the fabric of time. Isn't that fun? Come with me now, out of time. Let's jump back out for a little while and then decide on another mission. And you can come back. But allow me my mission. Since I have a perception of you, you must be included, are included, and were included in this time fabric with my salvation, which is accomplished and evident to me. Wow, come and be with me, dear loved ones. I've created you in the perfection of the certainty that my Father created me in wholeness, love, and beauty. There's no fault in us. Together we stand in awe. It is inevitable, if you're going to look at how your mind sequences time, that you are going to have to look at your own demise or death. This is the objection that I present with you. If what I am teaching you is true, and I'm sure it is, you obviously have constructed your own destruction or annihilation within your genetic memory of time. It is impossible that this not be so. You make an admission of it, as though somehow time is going to run its course within you and you are going to disappear. What a strange idea. Time on my hands till the end of time. You are preoccupied with time as though you can really use it up. The idea of using up time is what the idea of aging is. And the idea of sickness or a little death is the whole idea that you can actually use up time. So you have a time clock built in you, in a genetic association, and you literally grow old and you die. And I make this proclamation to you, that's impossible. If you will stop associating with your linear time sequences, you will not get old. Those of you who have come around us now and are feeling the energy of unity and continuity, are springing up to life and have brightness around you and are becoming spirited. This is healing process. How young you look because you see that aging is an absurd notation. You look in the mirror, consciousness is identified with the body, and we will paint lipstick on you and put fashion on a skeleton and then watch it age around you. Obviously, that is not occurring. In no sense are you really aging. How could you? You insist that you are, but that's only because you have identified yourself in that structure of body. But there's only a single consciousness contained in every fabric of you, in every microcosm, in every cell, that must be this light of reality. And it is. And through taking it all, this is the way Jesus teaches in the Course, to taking every thought that you ever could have, which is all the thoughts that there are, since an idea cannot leave its source and go anywhere, you simply bring it all together in a single memory of the wholeness of you. My declaration to you is that there is a process, and there has always been man, the secret wisdom of illumination, that you can do this. I declare to you that it is an individual process. You can't do it in accord with the projections that are outside of you in the denial of this. If you can hear us, let us know. I know you are out there. How much pain are you going to continue to inflict on yourself in your determination not to see how simple salvation really is? As much as you need to, I guess. But whenever you say, I'm going to keep on doing this, it is just an identification. It's just an indication that you are not in the pain. I hate to tell you this, but you have given the pain to your brother because all around you is pain. If you can somehow console yourself with the terrible things of hell, and this is where you are, in hell, you could go ahead and do it, my brother. Obviously, then you have not accepted responsibility for what is occurring. Those of you who have gone out in high service in the time and retained an identity of satisfaction in the deliverance of your brother through the attitudes of service and giving, realize this. You remain the constructor of this, until you come to know that only service to God or truth has value, and not service to yourself imagining. You will get this. I know that is a big step, but come and take it now with us in this incredible statement that the time is now. We will be in heaven together. We'll see you soon. That being said, let's have a quiet time together. Lay down your past associations. Still your minds. Now, if you feel the thrill of anticipation of what is occurring to you, you can feel it in these words. Just keep being free-flowing with your mind. Don't hold on. Your mind will seek real high levels. We will teach you a very active meditation. Utilize all of your thoughts, but don't hold on to any of them. Keep them letting go. You will come to light. The salvation of the world depends on you, not on the effects that you have constructed outside of yourself to retain death sequencing in your mind. Come home. We hope you will join us in this course in individual transformation. We're not an establishment here. We are a guide to your reality. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it will be opened for you, dear brother. We hope you will come and spend some time with us. You can hear this. You let us know. We have been looking for you for a very long time. Now we have found you and we are going to let you come home. Come on home.